The wind howled like a lonely ghost around Bianca Fisher's isolated cottage, whipping snowballs against the windows. 2 years since her husband, Frederick, had been taken from her, and the storms always made the emptiness feel louder. She was about to turn off the lights when a sound cut through the noise, not the wind, but a heavy, desperate thud against her front door. Her heart flew to her mouth as anxiety overwhelmed her. No one came out here, deep in the woods, especially not on a night like this. With a trembling hand, she pulled the door open, the storm rushing in. A man collapsed into her entryway, landing in a heap at her feet. Bianca gasped. He was huge, with broad shoulders, but now he was pale and soaked. A dark, ugly stain was spreading across his side, mixing with the snow on her floor. It was blood. His eyes, dark and clouded with pain, fluttered open for a second, pleading silently before closing again. Every sensible thought told her to call the police, to push him back into the storm. But the memory of her own loss was too fresh. She couldn't let someone else die. Grunting with effort, she grabbed his arms and dragged his heavy, limp body across the wooden floor, away from the door, away from the cold. She worked quickly, her hands shaking as she fetched warm water, towels, and her old first aid kit. His black shirt was stuck to the wound with dried and fresh blood. She took her sewing scissors and began to carefully cut the fabric away, revealing hard muscle and bruised skin. As she wiped the grime from his lower arm, her breath hitched. There, on his wrist, was It was a snake, coiled and ready to strike, wearing a tiny, sharp crown. Ice flooded her veins. Tommaso's voice, shaky with fear, echoed in her memory from the last night she saw him alive. If you ever see a man with a snake and a crown, Bianca, you run. You don't ask questions. You just run. She stared at the unconscious stranger on her floor. This was the mark of the man who had made her a widow. Santino Agasti woke to the smell of lavender and the crackle of a fire. Pain, sharp and hot, flared in his side. For a terrifying moment, he didn't know where he was. The last thing he remembered was the ambush, the betrayal, the desperate run through the woods. He tried to sit up, and a soft voice stopped him. Don't. You'll tear the stitches. He turned his head. A woman stood there, holding a bowl of steaming soup. She had kind eyes, the color of warm honey, but they were shadowed with a deep sadness he recognized. She helped him sip some water. Who are you? He rasped, his voice rough. I'm Bianca, she said. You're safe here. The word was a joke. Santino Agasti was never safe, and neither was anyone near him. He looked at her, this woman who lived alone in the woods, her kindness a stark contrast to the world he came from. He couldn't tell her the truth. He couldn't say, I'm Santino Agasti, and the men who did this to me would burn this whole forest down to find me. My name is Sonny, he lied, the old childhood nickname feeling strange on his tongue. I was meeting with some business partners. It went bad. Bianca nodded, but her eyes were guarded. She was hiding something too. Over the next 2 days, a strange quiet settled over the cottage. Bianca changed his bandages, her touch gentle and efficient. She made him meals and they talked. She spoke of her flower shop in town, of her love for the quiet woods. He found himself telling her stories about Italy, carefully edited tales that held glimmers of his real life without the bloodshed. He watched the way she bit her lip when she was concentrating, the way a strand of hair always fell across her face. A dangerous warmth began to spread in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. One afternoon, as Bianca was heating soup in the kitchen, her clumsy orange cat, Pulsino, leaped onto the bookshelf. The cat batted at a large, leather-bound book, sending it crashing to the floor near Santino's feet. Photographs spilled out across the rug. He was about to push them aside when a face in one of the pictures froze him solid. It was Bianca, younger, smiling brightly with her arm linked around a man. A man with a familiar, cocky grin. A man Santino had sat across from in a smoky bar 2 years ago. A man who had begged for his life before Santino's soldier put a bullet in his head. Tommaso. His blood turned to ice. This wasn't just a kind woman. This was the widow of a man he'd ordered killed. The man he'd declared a traitor. the man whose death he'd never given a second thought. He was lying in the home of the enemy he himself had created, and she was being kind to him. The guilt was a physical blow, worse than the bullet wound. Just then, Bianca came back into the room. She saw the open album, the photo of her and Tommaso in his hand. Her smile faded, replaced by that deep, familiar sorrow. "That was my husband," she said softly, her voice thick. "He was taken from me." Santino's own voice was a gravelly whisper. "I'm sorry." She looked at him, her honey-colored eyes searching his. "The world is full of monsters, Sonny." He could only nod, his throat too tight to speak. He was the worst monster of all, and he was falling for her. And outside, unseen by either of them, a black car slowed to a crawl on the wet road near her cottage. One of his own captains, a man named Paulie, was scanning the houses, looking for any sign of his missing boss. His gaze lingered on the lone cottage with the smoking chimney, making a mental note of it before driving on. The danger was no longer just from the rival family, it was now knocking on Bianca's door, wearing his own face. The crisp morning air felt like freedom as Santino, now fully healed, stepped out of Bianca's cottage. His side still ached, but it was a dull reminder of the storm that had brought him to her. He knew, with a chilling certainty, what he had to do. He had to leave. To stay was to paint a target on her back, to drag this pure, good woman into the bloody mud of his world. He walked down the path, not looking back, each step feeling heavier than the last. He got all the way to the main road, his mind set on disappearing forever. But then he pictured her smile. He heard her laugh. He remembered the way her small hand had felt in his. He turned around. He found her at her flower shop, Bianca's Blooms, a tiny sunlit space bursting with color. When he walked in, a bouquet of vibrant sunflowers in his hand, her face lit up with a joy so bright it stole his breath. "Sonny, you came back." "I had to," he said, and it was the truest thing he'd said in days. And so, a dangerous dance began. Santino knew he should run, but he was drawn to her light like a moth to a flame. He visited the shop every day, bringing her coffee, helping her carry heavy bags of soil. Their conversations grew deeper, their touches longer. One evening, as he was about to leave, she stopped him at the door. "Don't go," she whispered. He didn't. That night, in her small bedroom above the shop, their attraction exploded into a fiery, passionate intimacy. For Bianca, it was the first time she had felt alive, truly alive, since Marco's death. She was falling in love with Sonny, her mysterious new beginning. A few days later, she handed him a small, wrapped gift, her cheeks pink. "It's silly," she said, "but I want you to have it." It was a framed photo of the two of them, taken on her porch, smiling. On the back, she had written in her elegant script, "Asterisk, to Sonny, my new beginning." Santino's heart swelled with a painful joy. But as he reached into his pocket for his keys, his fingers brushed against a folded, secret document. A shipping manifest for one of his legitimate businesses, a front for his real work. His full, real name was printed clearly at the top, Santino Agasti. He froze, the framed photo feeling like a bomb in his hands. If she ever found that paper, his beautiful lie would shatter into a million pieces. The happiness couldn't last. A dark cloud followed Bianca, and one rainy evening, it broke. She and Santino were curled up on her couch when she began to cry, soft, heartbreaking sobs. "I miss him, Sonny," she confessed. "My husband, Marco. He was murdered." Santino's blood ran cold. He held her tighter, his body rigid. "What happened?" She told him the story she knew. The ambush. The cold, professional killers. They said the man who gave the order, his name was Santino Agasti. She spat the name like it was poison. "He's a monster. A devil. I hope he burns for what he did." Santino held her as she cursed his name, her tears soaking his shirt. He felt his own heart crack open. He was comforting the woman he was falling for as she wished death upon him. The guilt was a crushing weight, and in that moment he hated the man he was, the man who had caused this sweet woman so much pain. Later that night, as Santino slept fitfully, Bianca got up for a glass of water. His jacket was slung over a chair. As she passed it, the secret document, the one with his real name, slipped from the pocket and fluttered to the floor. She picked it up, her heart already pounding with a terrible fear. Her eyes scanned the paper, not understanding the business terms, until they landed on the name at the top. Santino Agasti. The world stopped. The paper trembled in her hand. Sonny. Her Sonny. The man whose body she knew, whose touch made her feel safe, was the same monster from her nightmares. The man she had just cursed was sleeping in her bed. A silent scream built in her throat. She didn't scream. She stood shaking in the dark living room, the truth a cold stone in her stomach. When Santino emerged from the bedroom, his face etched with worry, she simply held up the document. Her voice was a low, dangerous whisper. Who are you? Bianca, I can explain. Your name, she shrieked, the dam finally breaking. Is it Santino Agasti? Did you kill my husband? There was no point in lying anymore. The web was torn. He looked her straight in the eye, his own filled with a storm of regret and truth. Yes. My name is Santino Agasti. And yes, I gave the order for Marco to die. She collapsed into a chair, sobs racking her body. But Santino didn't run. He knelt before her. Your husband, Marco, he wasn't the man you thought he was, Bianca. He wasn't an innocent florist. He was a high-ranking member of the Romano crime family. They called him the Viper. Bianca stared at him, disbelief warring with the horrifying memory of Marco's fear, his warnings, his secretive life. No, that's a lie. He wasn't just a soldier, Santino continued, his voice urgent. He was planning a hit. Not on me. On my family. My mother. My little sister, Elena. He was going to have them killed in their home to send me a message. I gave the order to stop him. To protect my family. It was him or them. I chose them. Bianca's world tilted on its axis. The saintly image of her dead husband was crumbling, replaced by the terrifying picture of a killer. The monster she hated had saved his family, just as Marco would have saved her. The line between good and evil blurred into a painful, confusing gray. Just as the shocking truth settled in the room, the roar of a car engine shattered the night. Tires screeched to a halt outside. Headlights beams cut through the windows. Before either of them could move, the front window exploded inwards. Glass shards flew like daggers. And then came the deafening, world-shattering sound of automatic gunfire, ripping through the quiet cottage as a hail of bullets tore through the walls. Paulie and his men had arrived, and they were there to finish the job. The world dissolved into noise and flying splinters. As the gunfire erupted, Santino's body moved before his mind could. He was a human shield, throwing Bianca to the floor and covering her with his own frame. The gentle Sonny was gone, replaced in an instant by Santino Agasti, the Mafia king. His eyes, once warm, were now chips of ice, calculating and deadly. Stay down, he commanded, his voice a low growl that brooked no argument. He moved like a phantom. A lamp was smashed, its ceramic base becoming a weapon he hurled through the broken window, causing a yell of surprise outside. He snatched the fire poker Bianca had once held against him. When the first of Paulie's men kicked the door in, Santino was waiting. The fight was brutal, efficient, and terrifying. Bianca watched, huddled behind the couch, as the man she thought she knew became a whirlwind of controlled violence. He wasn't just fighting, he was ending threats. Finally, it was just Paulie left, standing in the doorway, his gun empty, his face a mask of shock and terror as he finally recognized the man he'd been sent to kill. Boss? I didn't know. Santino stood over him, the fire poker raised, his chest heaving. Every instinct, every rule of his world, screamed for him to finish it. To make an example. But he looked at Bianca, at the horror in her eyes. He thought of the man he wanted to be for her. With a supreme effort, he lowered the weapon. Get out, he snarled. Tell everyone. The war is over. The Santino you knew is dead. As Paulie scrambled away, a stunned silence fell. Bianca stared at Santino, truly seeing him for the first time. This was the monster. This was the man who killed Marco. Terrified, not of the guns, but of the violence in him and the love she still felt, she turned and ran. She fled out the back door and into the dark woods, desperate to escape the impossible truth. But another predator was waiting in the shadows. A second car, sleek and black, slid to a stop, blocking her path. Men she didn't recognize poured out, the Romano family, Marco's old crew. They had tracked the Agasti attack right to her door. A hand clamped over her mouth, stifling her scream as they dragged her, kicking and fighting, into the car. She was a prize. The perfect bait for the man who had killed their viper. Back in the ruined cottage, Santino found Bianca gone. A single silver earring, caught on a branch near the road, was all he found. A cold, primal fear, more terrifying than any gunfight, seized him. The Romano family had her. He pulled out a secret, encrypted phone he'd kept hidden even from Bianca. His voice was low and venomous as he spoke to his second-in-command. They took her. Mobilize everyone. We end this. Tonight. What followed was a war the city would whisper about for years. Santino, no longer a strategic boss in a backroom, led the charge himself. He was a man possessed, a force of nature fueled by love and fear. He stormed the Romano's waterfront warehouse, his men following the trail of fury he blazed. He wasn't fighting for territory or power. He was fighting for one woman. For his future. He kicked in the door to the main office, his gun raised, ready to trade his life for hers. But the scene inside was not what he expected. The Romano boss, a large man named Vinny, was on his knees, clutching his bleeding shoulder. And standing over him, holding a smoking gun with steady hands, was Bianca. Her clothes were torn, her face was smudged with dirt, but her eyes blazed with a fierce, untamed light. She had used the lessons of strength life had forced upon her, turning her grief into a weapon. She looked at Santino, her gaze a turbulent mix of love, pain, and defiance. I saved myself from them, she said, her voice clear and strong in the sudden quiet. But can you save me from you? The question hung in the air long after the last siren had faded. In the quiet of a safe house, surrounded by the ghosts of their past, they finally talked. Really talked. Bianca saw the man who had made an impossible choice to save his sister. Santino saw the woman who had endured a life built on a lie and had still found the courage to save herself. The love they had wasn't a simple, easy thing. It was complex, forged in fire and betrayal, but it was real. It was stronger than the past. I am done with it all, Santino vowed, holding her hands as if they were the most precious things he'd ever touched. The business, the power, the fear. I will build a new life, a clean life, for us. If you'll have me. 1 year later, the promise was kept. Santino Agasti's construction company, a new foundation, was holding its grand opening. He stood, handsome in a simple suit, no longer a king of shadows but a man of business. And by his side, holding his hand tightly, was Bianca. A reporter pushed through the crowd, microphone in hand. Mr. Agasti. Such a dramatic career change from import-export to construction. What inspired this new beginning? Santino looked at Bianca, letting her answer. She smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile that reached her eyes. She looked at the reporter, then back at the man she loved. Love, she said, the single word holding a universe of meaning. That evening, in their sun-filled, modern apartment, 2 photo frames sat side by side on the mantel. One was a new picture of Bianca and Santino on their wedding day, their faces radiant with hope for the future. The other was the old photo of Bianca and Marco, a reminder of a love that was real, even if the man was not who she thought. They had not forgotten the past. They had simply chosen to forgive it, to learn from it, and to build their forever together. What an incredible journey! From a stormy night to a peaceful new beginning, Bianca and Santino's story proves that love can bloom even in the darkest of places. If this story of forbidden romance, shocking twists, and ultimate redemption captured your heart, then you absolutely need to be part of our community. Subscribe to the channel right now. Don't miss our next epic tale of passion, danger, and drama. We love hearing from you. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Are you in New York, London, Tokyo? And what did you think? Were you Team Bianca from the start? Did you guess Santino's secret? Share your thoughts and theories below. And remember to ring the bell so you're the first to know when our next story drops. Until next time, keep believing in love against all odds.